Hey everyone, welcome to another video on the channel, and in today's video I have a big news video for y'all, including yesterday's teasers and today's teasers. All of these teasers are essentially going to shake up the entire PvP meta, so stay tuned. A lot of these things we've heard in the PvP Discord, and a lot of these things the community has been waiting on, so honestly, I'm pretty hyped for these teasers. Honestly, this whole week of Wiz content has been pretty lit. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having like a great time making content again, and I'm really hyped for the update. So really good on KingsIsle for doing this. I hope they can keep this momentum and going forward because I think it's great for the game. I think it's really great that they are also working with their creators. So without further ado, let's quickly cover yesterday's news and then talk about the new news that came out today, roughly about like an hour ago. So yesterday, Awesome the Sauce had teasers, and these teasers are basically the spell bans that we all predicted to happen because they do not follow school identity. But he also got some new spells like, what is it called? Courageous Badger, I think, which is basically a hit and then echoes an aura back onto you. So basically, if the opponent has a brace and I cast the Badger card, I will hit and then get a Pierce aura back and, you know, have tempo and an aura of my own, which I think is great. Also, I think it's important to realize that the way these new positive and negative auras are going to work, guys, is basically it's kind of like Bubble War, where it's like ping pong. Like you can counter an aura by just recasting another aura instead of having to like pop it with like a Thieving Dragon or Monster Mash. So what a lot of players are predicting right now is you're essentially going to have a Bubble War and an Aura War now, and it's just going to be ping pong, which, you know, might be a little annoying, but that's the first one we have here. Then the other two aren't really anything good. They are basically like a Scythe card, which is just like a balance hit. I don't think anybody is going to use this ever, like in any game mode, so it's kind of, you know, not really worth talking about. And then Purge, I think this card isn't a bad idea to have in the game, especially for like PvE players, but in terms of PvP, I don't really think it's that great, and the reason I say that is simply because you would use this against a chromatic weakness like Death Player, right? But the thing is, if they headless you and you do a Purge and they headless you again or vamp you again, they're actually getting damage and chipping you down, and you're just staying in the same spot the whole time. So I think Purge definitely has its situations, but it's going to be kind of underwhelming and not that good in my opinion. So that's everything we have from yesterday with Awesome the Sauce. Now let's talk about today. So we got cards from Corn Boar, and we also got cards from Potato Monkey as well. Let's go ahead and cover Potato Monkey's cards right away because those are just, you know, fresh like an hour ago. So he got a lot of balance spells. First up, Gear Head. Now everyone has been waiting on this card to get nerfed. This is probably one of the most broken cards in Wizard101 history. I'd say probably top 10 in terms of PvP. But essentially, instead of swapping both hots and dots, now you have a path B and C on Gearhead where you have to pick between swapping a hot or swapping a dot. And the compensation, of course, for losing a bit of utility is a damage buff. So I think it's cool, you know. They can't just simply pack this card and have it be good all the time. They could, you know, in theory, put it on the heal path as a heal counter and then pack other dot counters. So this does increase more counterplay and allow more strategies to be in the game, which I think is great. I think this direction for Gearhead wasn't a terrible idea. Balance Wizards still opt to go into the healing one, which I think, by the way, is what they will do. It's still not going to be worth going for like a berry or like a goat monk against a balance because this card is still just way better than anything you can actually do, unfortunately. But that being said, if they go into the healing one, they can't, you know, shift over your Storm Elf or your Burrowing Bane as a life for a Storm now when you're trying to heal. So again, there's give and take there. So I think it's cool. I think it's a good direction for them to go. Next up, we have Locust Swarm. This one is pretty interesting. This card was pretty bad for quite some time, but now looks like we got a buff or an audit. So essentially, this one is going to hit and then echo 2 traps onto the opponent that are 40%. So basically, if you fuel me and I cast this spell, I could, in theory, knock off a weakness in a tower and then put on 2 40% universal buffs back onto you. So very, very interesting here. Might see that be used. Maybe it's kind of situational, but at least they are giving Bounce more tools to work with, which I think is obviously great. We also have a change to Scarab, but this one is essentially being that you can either swap a blade from the opponent or swap a weakness on you. So basically think of this like Angry Snow Pig, Ice Pig, but in Scarab form. I don't think Bouncers are going to use this, the bottom path, because you just run Dark Pact or Empower at that point and get more value. So I think Bouncers are probably going to stay with that middle path with the swap blade. And lastly, we have some changes to Scorpion. So Scorpion is actually 1 pip now instead of 2, which I find interesting. And you can either swap a shield and then hit, or you can hit and then swap a trap, actually. So I'm not really sure why you would hit and swap a trap. I don't really understand the value in that. I mean, maybe you could do some like cool strats with that, possibly. But again, I think people are going to stay with the middle path Scorpion. It actually did get buffed this update because there's 2 pips to swap the shield and hit, but now it's 1. So pretty cool there. So not a lot of changes for Bounce. I mean, there's a lot more, you know, diversity, a lot more ways to play the school, which again, I think is great. That's what balance should be. And we'll have to see where players go with, you know, Gearhead and Locust Swarm, of course. Next up, we have the Core and Boar teasers. So Core and Boar's teasers are pretty interesting, actually. These ones are going to be affecting Jading quite a bit in the meta, I do want to say, and I am predicting that Jading is probably going to be a top tier strat again within this patch and update, unfortunately, guys, especially with those liths and like liars and stuff like that running around cosplaying, dual schooling. It's going to get quite bad this update, I think, unfortunately, with that. But basically here we see a buff to infection and threefold, simply just buffing up the values, which is great. And most interestingly, for weakness gambits, Queen Calypso actually got a minor damage buff, and it gives 2 infections. So basically, if you queen into a queen, you can have a weakness gambit set up right away. So think of like a Turmoil Oni. That would be absolutely insane. What I think is cool about this one, though, if you take like a Death and a Storm matchup, like if I queen a Death and they threefold me, I could Vexation and then set up my gambit right away. And even if they hit one of those weaknesses off, I still have 4 to gambit my Oni, which I think is really cool. But prior to this update, you could do that exact same combo, but the second they hit one of those weaknesses off, you'd have 3 out of 4 for the gambit, and you wouldn't have the gambit. So I think this would be really cool. I think you actually might see Storms pack Oni for a couple of matchups now, which could be really cool. Okay, next up, let's address the elephant in the room. So this is going to be Triton. Now, Triton is getting a pretty big nerf this update, I'm not going to lie. But basically, I think the damage binder got buffed a little bit, by the way. But basically, the chromatic blades are coming off a bit like Stormzilla. So basically now, other schools that are not Storm aren't going to be able to use this card very efficiently. With the dual skull buff, you might see players, you know, be able to make it work. Maybe we'll have to see. I feel like people aren't going to use this, but I could be wrong. I'm not always right, but this is a very big buff to life and Jading. And like I said, Jading right now and cosplay is still around even to this day and age before all these changes happen. So it is going to be very scary for the next update, I think. But definitely the most controversial change is going to be the Triton one here. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments below about this, guys. A couple of subtle changes here at the bottom. We have Troll, which apparently got a little bit of an audit. It seems to be like a double detonate. So you detonate 1 and then gambit a shield for 2 detonates. So if you have like a Krampus and you Troll, you detonate both of them if you have a shield on. So pretty cool. I like that spell. Hopefully it's not bugged. It's been bugged ever since it came out. So, you know, hopefully everything is sorted out there. Then we have a Glimpse buff right here. Basically, it's just going to be doing more damage for the utility path, which is interesting for sure. I think you might see some Ices run this card simply because you can actually counter shields instead of like an Everwinter Oni. You might see something like that. We'll have to see. Also, in general, I've heard that the Novus and Walrus spells are getting a tier 5 update. So basically stuff like Teacup and like Bunyip are going to be just like a little bit more powerful now. probably about like 15, 20 more damage, which, I mean, cool, I guess. Then lastly, we have a nerf to Drop Bear. Now, we've heard about this one for a while now, but basically, the damage is still going to be really good. The actual burst damage and the clear, which is what makes the card broken, by the way, is really good. But the OT is getting nerfed to be a fire dot. So basically, Drop Bear is going to do a lot less damage on the overtime. So it's a very subtle myth nerf. I don't think this actually attacks the core problem of like Drop Bear and Stone Colossus. The issue with those spells is they just go around the mitigation and nuke the opponent. You know, it'd make more sense for Drop Bear and Stone to go around a shield, do a bit of damage, but then be a lot more backloaded with their overtime identity on a myth, you know. But yeah, I mean, at least it is a nerf. It's something to try and address the demon school that is myth right now in the game, but it's the wrong change in my opinion. They just completely missed the mark with what they needed to nerf about the card. But yeah, that's everything I got for the video today. I think we covered all 3 teasers. I hope you guys did enjoy it. What are your thoughts and feedback about these? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a sub. If not, thank you for watching this far, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for being here, and take care.